Hi, this is a video going out to our folks that have had an interest in the new AHCi Consortium Applied Operational Research Institute, the AHCi, small I. What is it? It's a new organization started in 2019, approved by the board, to really help align research with use cases and communities in the private sector to transition quicker current research that applies in the field, inform future research, and give a kind of a feedback loop to federal partners. We've had, over the last 4 months, we've had meetings with DHS, the National Risk Management Center, FEMA, the DHS operations people, the NASA imagery people, USGS, NOAA. All of them have said the same thing, that they don't have as an effective feedback loop from the owners and operators of critical infrastructure. They work with the vendors, but the vendors aren't the ones actually using the data many times. The vendors are the ones using the data to create a product to market to the states or the private sector. They're interested in the consortium because we have connection to the utilities and the telecoms and the food and the fuel folks, which they don't really have an opportunity to engage often. There's a concern in the research community that if they engage directly with the private sector, the vendor community gets concerned about about governments competing with them in the market, and that's really not the case. The case here is to give feedback on data sets or research that can better inform the overall marketplace and have the states involved in that. So I'll give you a case in point. One of the things we ran across is imagery. This is going to be a big issue in 2020 for our GIS committee. The idea was to maybe look at forming an imagery use case committee comprised of NASA, NOAA, USGS, private sector, whatever, to look at what are the best imagery data sets we can use for large scale, regional footprint, right, down to smaller footprint, down to state and local footprint, right? There's not going to be one data set that does it all. And NASA had a keen interest in that when we just met last week at the ESIP, the Earth Science Information Partners has their winter meeting every year in Bethesda. We met down there with them. And NASA, all of them had a keen interest in this feedback loop. But when we drilled into it was really feedback from the owners and operators of critical infrastructure, which they weren't able to get to. So this could be a very good, just a simple application of the Institute. So the reason we're sending out this video is we're going to organize a small advisory committee. What we want to do is, we had our first meeting. We want to build on that and have a group kind of advise the process, the formation of governance, right? The mission statement and the focus of this, and then maybe explore the possible options for outreach. The main audience for the Institute is to go after the private sector foundations and R&D efforts going on in private sector to leverage the federal's investment. We've had some initial discussions with the private sector, and they're very interested in building upon the federal investment. Wouldn't it be great if we could do this together so that we have problems here that are public-private issues and we can both coordinate the investments so we're not all doing different things and come up with 20 solutions? What if we came up with a single solution to address a single use case that was jointly funded, jointly utilized, and jointly operationalized? That's what the CIIU has become. So anyway, very exciting opportunity. We're glad to have all of you that have expressed an interest, and if it's not an interest, just ignore this. But I wanted to give you some backdrop as a read ahead to the purpose of this group. Once we meet, we can decide how often we want to meet, but I think in 2020, the objective here is to move the ball down the road, identify some initial projects, build our communications platform for that, and as we go forward, is to look for those projects and partnerships we can build together that will allow us to actually produce some product quickly, right? And sometimes that's not producing it. Sometimes that's leveraging what's already there. And there's already some initial ones that are being looked at right now in the data world, possibly in the drone world, There may be, or imagery world. There may be some other ones within information sharing, but we don't want to limit it just to disaster management. Kelly McKinney talked about, there's a training opportunity here, a real way to train companies and states on real private sector partnerships, right? The liaison work. And I know Kent Kildall from Verizon expressed a keen interest in this with Persia, is developing a joint private sector liaison training for private and public to come together so that during an event, they can coordinate better. But we also want to look at non-disaster, really, kind of blue sky day efforts. And that could be anything what the Institute wants to do. So it'll be many things, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, it's all about public-private working together, combining their investments to do joint projects that can further the nation's resilience at the end of the day. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great 2020. I hope you like the format here. I'll leave this up and running. You guys can come back and look at it. But we're very excited about the Institute. I think it builds upon the consortium's core values, but more importantly, it builds upon federal, private, and state partnerships that really can help move the ball and long-term maybe operationalize things that can support ESF 14 from the federal perspective, that can support business continuity and sustain beyond these elections that cause these disruptive turnovers with people. And these projects, the governance around them can help sustain that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do this. So anyway, thank you. Have a great day.